After midnight, the fourth floor of Wilson Hall at Ohio University goes quiet in a way that feels different from the rest of the building. Most doors are closed. Most lights are out. You hear the usual dorm sounds here and there: pipes knocking, someone walking back from the bathroom, a door clicking shut. But there's one door on that floor that people tend not to linger in front of: the door to room 428. Every so often, someone walking past hears it, a steady, measured pacing inside the sealed room, heel-to-toe footsteps crossing from the window to the door and back again. Sometimes it sounds like the blinds are tapping softly against the glass, even though the window is shut and there's no airflow. Sometimes, if you're close enough, you can see the door handle move just barely. A tiny metallic twitch, like someone on the other side is checking whether it still works. The room behind that door has been empty for decades. No student has slept there in years. And there's a reason the university left it that way. On the surface, Wilson Hall is about as ordinary as a residence hall can get. It's a 1960s-era dorm, long, straight hallways, identical rooms, white cinder block walls, and the glow of fluorescent lights that never completely shut off. But on the fourth floor, there's one room that doesn't get assigned anymore. One room that shows up in whispered stories at the start of every school year. One room that older students point to when they're asked, "What's the most haunted place on campus?" That room is 428. And the story always starts with a student who lived there in the late 1970s, and with things that began happening that no one could quite explain. This is the story of room 428 at Ohio University. Hey, it's Robert. Before we get started, this is one of our mini episodes. These are the shorter, more laid-back episodes where I talk through something strange or interesting without all the extra production and cinematic build-up that the full episodes get. Today we're headed to Ohio University, where a single dorm room on the fourth floor of Wilson Hall has been sealed for decades, and where the story behind that door has stayed alive long after the last student moved out. Let's get into it. In the late 1970s, a female student moved into room 428 on the fourth floor of Wilson Hall. By all accounts, she wasn't the type to cause trouble. She was quiet, kept mostly to herself, the kind of person who seemed comfortable being alone with her thoughts. She had a strong interest in spiritual and metaphysical topics. She meditated regularly. She read about astrology and energy work. Her desk was lined with paperbacks about consciousness and the unseen. And she kept notebooks, lots of them. Spiral-bound journals filled with neat handwriting, star charts, symbols, and long reflections on what she believed about the world. At first, her time in room 428 seemed normal enough. But slowly, she began to feel the room wasn't just a room. She told a few people she felt like she was being watched when she tried to sleep. Not from the hallway, not from the window, but from inside the room itself. She described a heaviness in the air, a sense that something was waiting. Friends noticed she was sleeping less. She'd be awake when they passed by her door late at night. Sometimes, if they looked in, they'd see her pacing. Slow, thoughtful steps from the bed to the window and back again, or sitting cross-legged on the floor with her journals open all around her. Over time, her notebook shifted. The clean astrological charts and diagrams gave way to something else. Pages filled with repeated symbols, phrases written over and over in the margins, notes about contact, thresholds, and opening a door. That's when things in room 428 really began to change. Small things started happening first. She'd place a pen on her desk, leave the room for class, and when she came back, it would be on the floor across the room. Books that had been stacked neatly would be found lying open. A framed photo she'd kept beside her bed was discovered face down in the morning. At night, she started waking up suddenly, feeling like someone was standing near the bed, close enough that she could sense a presence, but never close enough to see anything when she turned on the light. Her desk lamp flickered even after maintenance replaced the bulb. Twice. She woke up one morning to find her chair pulled out and turned toward the middle of the room, squarely facing her bed. Another time, she found 3 of her journals on the floor, all open to pages she hadn't been working on, each page marked by a different symbol drawn in heavy, dark ink. Students in the rooms next to hers began to notice things too. They heard footsteps in her room at odd hours, slow, rhythmic pacing, the kind you do when you're thinking or anxious. But sometimes they heard it when they knew she was gone. Some heard what they described as whispering, not loud, not clear enough to make out words, just a low, steady murmur that didn't quite match any voice they recognized. Meanwhile, her journals became more agitated. More symbols, less structure. More phrases like, "It's aware," "It's closer at night," and "I shouldn't have invited it." She mentioned to someone that she felt like she had opened something, and she wasn't sure how to close it. Then came the night the entire floor remembered. It was late, well after midnight, when the scream came from room 428. It was sudden, sharp, the kind of sound that cuts straight through walls in sleep and pulls people out of bed before they've even registered why. Doors opened up and down the hallway. Students stepped out, half awake, turned toward the same direction. A few ran to 428 and knocked. When they got inside, the room looked like it had been hit by something. Papers were scattered across the floor. Books were thrown open, some face down, some stacked at odd angles. The mirror on the wall had a clean, jagged crack running right through its center, as if it had been struck from the inside. The student stood near the middle of the room, shaking. Her eyes were wide and unfocused, and she had a journal in her hand, open to a page where one sentence had been written over and over. "It's still here." It took a while to calm her down. She didn't have a clear explanation for what had happened. The closest she came was saying that something had stepped through and that it wouldn't leave. She didn't stay at Ohio University much longer after that night. She withdrew from classes and left campus. Room 428 did not calm down when she was gone. Once she left, room 428 went back into circulation, at least for a little while. The next student assigned to the room lasted only a few weeks. He reported waking up to the sound of someone walking in circles in the dark, slow, deliberate steps that stopped the moment he reached for the light. He told friends he couldn't shake the feeling that something was standing near the foot of his bed. One night he woke to find his belongings neatly stacked in the center of the floor, as if someone had carefully moved them while he slept. He put in for a room change. The student who came after him had her own experiences. She noticed that the closet door didn't like to stay shut. She would close it at night only to find it open a few inches in the morning. More than once, she woke up to see it creeping open, just enough to reveal a narrow slice of darkness inside. She also saw movement reflected in the window, not out on the campus lawn, behind her. She'd catch a glimpse of something passing from one wall to the other, only to turn around and find the room empty. Another resident claimed to hear whispering next to his ear in the middle of the night. Not in the hallway, not outside, right beside him, close enough that he felt the air shift against his skin. RAs doing their rounds started reporting odd things too. They'd walk past 428 and hear what sounded like someone moving around inside, even though the room wasn't supposed to be occupied. A few of them saw the door handle twitch as they passed, like someone inside had started to open the door and then changed their mind. Maintenance was called to the room multiple times. Flickering lights, outlets that worked one day and failed the next. An unexplained smell like something had overheated that would appear and vanish with no obvious source. Over time, room 428 became a problem. Not a dramatic, headline-making crisis, just a steady stream of students who didn't want to be there and couldn't sleep when they were. The dorm staff eventually had to decide what to do with it. Sometime after the incident in room 428, and depending on who you ask, that means the early 70s, the late 70s, or sometime in the 80s, the university quietly made a decision. They stopped assigning the room. There was no announcement, no meeting with the RA staff, no warning to incoming students. It just disappeared from the housing list. Housing maps were reprinted, floor plans updated, and 428 simply wasn't offered anymore. The number stayed on the door, but not on the roster. You'd walk the hall and see 426, 427, and 429, and in the middle, a closed door no one talked about. Most students didn't think anything of it, not until someone told them why the room was empty. And depending on the storyteller, the reason changed. A student died in there. A student practiced something they shouldn't have. A student heard scratching on the walls every night. A student woke up to someone standing over their bed. A student left in the middle of the night and didn't come back. The details never line up, but the pattern does. Everyone agrees on two things. 1. Something happened in room 428. 2. The easiest solution was to shut the door and move on. People who lived on the 4th floor remember the way the door used to creak. Now it doesn't move at all. The hinges were reinforced, the lock replaced, and at some point, no one knows exactly when, the windows inside were sealed. Not boarded or covered, just sealed in a way that keeps them from opening ever again. New freshmen moved in year after year, walking past the door with no idea that it wasn't really a room anymore. It had become something else. A container. A container for what depends on who you ask. Some say the room is completely empty now, stripped down to nothing but a floor and 4 walls. Others swear the furniture is still inside. The bed, the desk, and an old stain on the carpet that maintenance could never fully clean. A former RA claims she saw the inside once during a maintenance inspection. She said the walls were scratched, long vertical marks at shoulder height, the kind you'd make if you were bracing yourself or trying to keep something away. Another student swore they saw light under the door at 2 a.m, a thin blue-white glow there for only a moment. When they bent down to look, it snapped off. Today, the door sits in the same beige hallway as every other door on the 4th floor. No sign, no warning, nothing unusual except the fact that it never opens. People walking by late at night say they still hear movement, a slow, steady pacing. Heel, toe, turn, heel, toe. Someone once reported hearing a woman whisper behind the door. Someone else said they heard knocking. But one detail comes up more than any other: the sound of something brushing against the inside of the door, as if someone is standing there, pressed against it, listening. The university won't comment. Not officially, not off the record. The only statement they'll give is this: Room 428 is not in use. And for most people, That's enough. But for anyone who has ever lived on the 4th floor of Wilson Hall, that sealed door is a reminder. Something happened in there. Something the university didn't want happening again. Something they believed could be contained with a lock, a reinforced frame, and silence. Only silence doesn't always hold. So let's take a step back and talk about what we actually know. Wilson Hall is real. Room 428 is real. And there's strong consensus across multiple generations of former students that at some point the university stopped assigning that room. Those are the pieces that hold up. The rest of the story, the student in the 70s, the journals filled with symbols, the cracked mirror, the footsteps, the whispers, the belongings moved in the night, the closet door that wouldn't stay shut. All of that lives in the space between campus folklore and personal memory. Some of these accounts show up in old online forums from the early 2000s. Some come from local ghost tours. Some come from long Reddit threads where former residents compare notes about the 4th floor and what they experienced there. The details shift from person to person, but the shape of the story stays remarkably consistent. What we don't have is any official documentation. No incident reports, no university statements, no archived articles confirming a single dramatic event that triggered the room's closure. So yes, there's a sealed room in Wilson Hall, and yes, it's fueled one of the most persistent legends on campus. But whether something truly happened in room 428, or whether a collection of unsettling experiences grew into a single shared story, that's the part no one can say with any certainty. So what do I think? I don't believe a story sticks around for this many years without some kind of spark behind it. Maybe the student in the 70s really did experience something frightening. Maybe the people who lived there after her picked up on that same feeling and it snowballed into the legend we have now. Because once a room earns a reputation, everything that happens inside it gets viewed through that lens. A draft becomes a presence. A noise becomes a warning. A late night shift of shadows becomes something watching. And before long, the story becomes bigger than whatever started it. Do I think room 428 is holding on to something supernatural? I don't know. But I do think places can hold on to emotion, fear, stress, loneliness, whatever someone leaves behind. And the 4th floor of Wilson Hall has carried that weight for a long time. What stands out to me most is that the university didn't repurpose the room or renovate it or try to put an end to the stories. They just closed it, quietly, without explanation. And sometimes that silence says more than anything else. This has been State of the Unknown. And before anything else, thank you so much for joining me for this one. I really appreciate you being here. Quick honest note, if you're enjoying the show, dropping a rating or review on Apple or Spotify genuinely helps. The algorithm boosts the show when it sees engagement, and it also helps make sure you actually get new episodes when they drop. And if there's a mystery you're curious about or an idea you think would make a great episode, you can reach me anytime at stateoftheunknown.com/contact. You can even leave me a voicemail message there. Thanks for listening and for stepping into the unknown with me. Until next time, stay curious, stay unsettled, and remember, some doors stay closed for a reason.